video has to be HB Pro webcam 4. Oh, look, it worked. Okay.
Got it?
Yeah. Okay. I can see. Yeah, it's Rabbi Sid this morning.
Oh.
I think it's fine. And they're like, what, we had 60 people last night? 12 people have signed up today. So maybe we'll have 25? Maybe a little bit more. Hey, good morning. Okay, just Shabbat Shalom. Give me a few little.
Well, Jeff Gruber certainly makes a huge difference.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, but that's not why it was perfect. I have to do a little tape.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter. I think the show us scroll, am I crazy? Did we use that?
We just used that last week.
They're gonna put this down like this.
Oh, you want me to just do it? Oh, okay. We used that one last week. This was State's Bar Mitzvah.
The Nate's Bar Mitzvah, we used the show us scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, but Nate's Bar Mitzvah was
last week?
Yes.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was a spectacular event. We had new members. We
did
had Jeff Gruber actually said to me, "Looks to me like this is the younger end of your community." It was great. Because it was the right program for the right audience. And that would be my take.
Very sweet. And then Rosie comes and hands me a warm challah.
Oh.
In autumnal colors.
Oh, jeez. Wait, Rachel, can I just ask you a quick tech question? When I plug the Ethernet into this, I think do you know how to turn your computer so it's like reading the Ethernet instead of the Wi-Fi?
I mean, I think all you have to do is go ahead and plug it in. All you have to do is
take a photo because I don't know who that is.
turn this off.
Baruch Shemo. Baruch Hu. Baruch Shemo. Baruch Hu.
Psalms. You can unmute it. Psalm 136. That's right. I had it. Yeah.
Lo ka'aretz alamayim, kileram pasto, lo seorim gedolim, kileram pasto, lo seorim gedolim, kileram pasto, yai la 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 la, kileram pasto. Ya la 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 la, kileram pasto. Et Hashem shlemem shelet bayom, kileram. Sorry. Ta'er b'chachim hem shalot halayla, kileram pasto. Shebishvilenu zachar lanu, kileram pasto. Ve'yifekenu mitzarenu, kileram pasto. Ya la 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 la, kileram pasto. Ya la 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 la, kileram pasto. Noten lechem lechol basar, kileram pasto. Odu le'el hashamayim, kileram pasto. Noten lechem lechol basar, kileram pasto. Odu le'el hashamayim, kileram pasto. Ya la 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 la, kileram pasto. Ya la 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 la, kileram pasto. Psalm 150, page 231. Kol haneshama tehalel ya, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehalel ya, hallelujah. Hallelujah bekodsho, hallelujah b'tiyotzo, hallelujah b'gvurotav. Hallelujah, oh, neshama tehalel, hallelujah, oh, neshama tehalel, hallelujah, hallelujah, take a shofar, בכל, הללו בני ועוגה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללו בציר כלי שמה, הללו בציר כלי תורה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה. Page 241. נעלה לך, נשבח לך, נפארך, נברך את שם קודשך, כאמור בדוד. ברכי נפשי את אדוני לכל כפיי, את שם קודשו. האל בתעצומות עוזך, הגדול בכל שמך, הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא, שוכן עד דרום וקדוש שמו. וכתוב אמינו צדיקים אדוני, לישרים נבטילה, לפי שרים תתרומם, בדברי צדיקים תפרח, ובלשון חסידים תתקדש, ובקרב קדושים תתהלל, ובנחלות לבבות עמך בית ישראל. אביב בן שי עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד. ברכות והדעות נתן לאדונם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול במשפחות, אל ההודעות גדול בנפלאות, חבוקר בשירי שמחה, מלך אל העולמים.
Please rise for the Baruch Hu, page 247.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אתה המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהים מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
May be seated, page 253. We're going to sing El Adon.
אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך וברך בכל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם תחת וטוב הסובבים אותו, המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר בכבוד על מרכבה, זכות ומשול לפני טיסות, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים מאוד שבא אלוהינו יצרם בתחת בבינה וחסד וכוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב בבל, מלאים זיו ומשקים נוחה, נאי זיוון בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים בהם הרצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמות צהלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אורה והקים צור על פניו. שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שפים ואופנים, סרפים ואופנים וחי הקודש. לה 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 Page 269. Okay.
I'd like Ted Berman to come up. You can turn in your prayer books to page 185. You can take your mask off and lead us reading a nature reading key to the morning bracha.
Nature is God's nigun, a wordless melody of unfolding life. To awaken to God, we must hear the nigun. To awaken to God, we must listen in deep silence. Silence arises when thinking ceases. If we would know God, we must quiet the mind. Cease the chatter that passes for knowledge, when in fact, it only flatters the foolish. We cannot live without words, but let us not imagine that words are sufficient. As a symphony needs rest to lift music out of noise, so we need silence to lift truth out of words.
Now page 269. המחדש כתובו בכל יום תמיד, מעשה בראשית כאמור, לעושה אורים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו במהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאור. Page 275, at the top. והארנינו בתורתך ודבק בנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא פתחנו, נגילה ונשמחה משועתך. והביאנו לשלום מעל כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל כל ישועתנו וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Page 277. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך ובדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרת מאוד על ידך, והיו לצאתך בעיניך וכרתם על מזוזות ביתך
ובשעריך. Take a few moments to read the next few paragraphs, either Hebrew or commentary below the line, and then we'll join together to read the third paragraph in Hebrew of the Shema. I invite you to join your talit tzitzit together on your left forefinger as we read on page 285 in Hebrew. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'marta alehem, v'esu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei b'gdehem l'dorotam, v'natnu al tzitzit, hakanaf v'til techelet. V'ayal lachem tzitzit, v'yitem oto, v'zachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, Vasitem otam, lo taturu acharei lavavchem, acharei nechem, ashartem zonim achareihem. Ama'an tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kedoshim lelhechem. Ani Adonai lelhechem, shotziti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai lelhechem.
Adonai
Continue top of page 291.
להיות לעליון ברוך הוא מבורך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל החנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נגע בקודש, נוראתי לו תוסף לב. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמחה על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני לו לעולם ועד. Praises for Israel, Mourner Israel, Uvdei Numecha, Yehuda Israel, Go'aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Israel, Baruch atah Adonai.
Amen. Join together on the Amidah, page 295.
Adonai sefatai tifahu fi aditehi hatrecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avotinu v'imotzeinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Ha'giבור והנורא, אל עליון, כומר חסדים טובים, וכומר הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן העולם וזרוע. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח, ומוריד אהבה השם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי כל חי ברחמים רבים, תומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, לשמי אהבה, מי כמוך הגבורות, ומתום מלך, מלך מליץ ומחיה, ומצליח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות כל חי, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי כל חי. Make sure you agree. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמו קישים אותו בשם הרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקום מלכנו תופיע ותנפוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצח. בעינינו תיראנה, תיראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. בעינינו תיראנה, תיראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, נגיד תוד לך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, נגיד תוד לך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא נמוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
I invite you to remain standing, continuing your sound Amidah or sound prayer through page 323, and we'll join together at the end and sing Oseh Shalom.
your own prayers. And we will join together on page 323, second line from the bottom. Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'anu ildu amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Page 381. Yikadal Vikadashem Nevabam, Yamai Vakute, Yamdi Pakote, the Payakon, Bimikon, Payakol Beit Israel, Vagalav is Montari Yineru, Yesh Nevabam Goa, Yamai Yifara, Yifara, Ishtabam, Yifara, Dumavit Nasev, Yifadal, Yitalev Kala, Shmei Kudasha, Brihu, Leila, Yikobekata, Vishkata, Vishkata, Negamata, Lamiranda, Mavineru, Yikabal, Sratahon, the whole Beit Israel, Kodama, Rundi Shmai, Vineru, Yehish Namarav, Yishmaya, Halim, Aleinu, Val, Kol Israel, Vineru, Moshe Shalom, Bimama, Uyaseh Shalom, Aleinu, Val, Kol Israel, Val, Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Vimeru, Amen.
Would the person who's given the honor to open the ark join us? Dan, come on up. Thank you. Turn to page 383 for the Torah service. 383. And just as a heads up, we're going to do the procession. We haven't done it for a while, but I think we're ready to bring the Torah around. People are vaccinated. If you're not comfortable, you can take a step to the side, but we're going to bring the Torah out into the Kahal community to in our usual custom. Okay, it's been a little bit too long. And I see for people on Zoom, I've got a little bit of shout outs going on. People are eager to get back to a little bit of normality. So let's do it. 383 Torah service.
En kamocha Elohim Adonai, en k'maasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim. וממשלתך בכל תורתו. אדוני מלך, אדוני הולך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. Etiva virtzoncha et Zion, tibne komot Yerushalayim, tibne komot Yerushalayim, ki lecha levadotav, melech elam ve'isa. Adon Olamim. Vayihi binso Aharon vayomer Moshe Uma Adonai ve'afutzu ohecha ve'yanusu misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzeh Torah Ki mitzion Page 393.
Cantor first, we respond.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo. Kadosh Adonai, U'Yamama, Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai,
Hagidula, Hagidula.
Yisrael ve'oraita, Tushar v'chuchadu. Torah, Hallelujah. Torah,
Hallelujah, Torah,
Torah,
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. May be seated. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see everyone here in the sanctuary, and those of you at home on Zoom, welcome. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Our parsha this week is Va'era. It's funny because maybe 6 months from now, rabbis around the country will complain that there's not much to talk about in the parsha. But this week, there's enough to talk about for about 6 months. It's very, very rich. And some of the highlights I'm not going to touch upon. Like Abraham welcoming in the guest with his open tent, the lesson of hospitality, the whole notion of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham pleading for God to show mercy even on people who have been evil or wicked. The story ends with a very famous passage of the challenge to Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, and how that was averted at the final moments. And we're not going to talk any about any of that at all this morning, because I've titled the talk, "What do we do when the Bible gets it wrong?" And as I've said many times before from the Bima, the truth that emerges from a parsha, from the Torah, if you will, the revelation that happens when you read it, happens somewhere between what's happening in your life, what's happening in the world, and what's going on in the text. And for that reason, we can read the same parsha year after year after year, and each year it reveals different truths, because we are different people and the world is a different world. So here's my week. Monday, I hear an item on NPR from a young woman activist in Afghanistan who was a women's rights activist. She had been, before the takeover of the Taliban, been running 18 schools for young girls throughout Afghanistan. Today, because of the takeover, she's down to one, a school that's running underground, so to speak, in the early morning and late at nights, all on Zoom, essentially, with about 100 young girls, and she fears for her life for doing this crime. On Tuesday, I read a piece in Al Jazeera, which talked about the fact, and I was shocked by this, that during the Ghani administration, about 250 women judges had been appointed or rose to office and were doing their duty. They were serving as judges in courts throughout Afghanistan. And when the country fell to the Taliban, not only were all the government offices ransacked so that all the records were made available, but they also opened up all the prisons. As it turned out, hundreds and hundreds of men who had been imprisoned by these judges for everything from rape to killing their wives, to killing their sisters for the crime of looking at another man in the wrong way. All these men who had been put into jail were now essentially saying, time for revenge. So these 250 women are all in hiding throughout Afghanistan, fearing for their lives. The fact of the matter is their names, addresses, and numbers are all in the files of government offices that were opened up by the Taliban and made available to whomever walked in. And on Thursday, there was an op-ed in the Washington Post by another young woman activist from Afghanistan who talked about the fact that because no country has yet recognized the Taliban and the economy is essentially ground to a halt, citizens in Afghanistan are selling whatever they can sell just to get food. And when they run out of furniture or clothing or jewels to sell, they sell their daughters. So that's the framework that I brought to reading the Parsha. And I happened upon a commentary by one of the great women feminists of our time, Judith Plaskow, who gave me a totally different take on this Parsha. So here, with credit to Judith Plaskow, is her take. And I'm acting as her shaliach, essentially, because it's her insights. So 3 incidents from the Parsha. In Genesis chapter 19, the setup for the story of what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah is that Lot, Abraham's cousin, who lives in Sodom, welcomes 2 strangers who are angels who were sent to Sodom. Presumably, their task was to warn Lot and his family that there will be the destruction of the city and he should make his way out. But they're, of course, disguised as angels, just as the angels were in the early part of the Parsha when they are welcomed into Abraham's tent. Well, the men of Sodom, as to exemplify the evil of the city, are aware that these 2 visitors are in town and are in Lot's house. They come to Lot's house, they say, give us these men so we may do with them as we please, essentially to sexually assault them. Shenida'otam is the Hebrew, which is essentially the word for sexual relations. Let us do with them as we please. And Lot says, no. And many of the commentaries praise Lot for his protection of the stranger until he comes up to the next line. He says, how about this? Let me give you my 2 virgin daughters and do with them as you please. And nowhere in the text is there any criticism of Lot's decision, as if the silent complicity is to say, that was pretty clever. He saved his guests. And hospitality is a high value considered by the people who put together our text. So there's item number one. 1A, which I'll mention because there are two other instances, but I do want to mention at the end of that chapter 19, the two daughters who flee Sodom and Gomorrah with Lot, of course, their mother doesn't make it. She turns into a pillar of salt. But the two daughters who make it actually wind up sleeping with their father, with Lot, and two men are born, Moab and the Ammonites come out of that union. But here again, the way the text tells the story is that the girls, the daughters, got their father drunk in order to sleep with him. I'm wondering what the other side of the narrative might be. Think about all the situations where the narrative, either from the media or in a courtroom, okay, you have evidence that essentially makes the victim responsible for what's happened to them. I'm just wondering what we haven't read here in terms of two young women who sleep with their father in an act of incest and who may be to blame. It's just an open question. Incident 2 comes in Genesis chapter 20. This is when Abraham, going to the village, the area of Gerar, sees that he may be at risk. And when King Abimelech shows up, Abraham, as a kind of a way to kind of get safe passage, says, take my sister, who's actually his wife, Sarah. Okay. He offers his wife, saying that it's not his wife, to Abimelech as a way to say, I'm a stranger in this land, please treat me well, and as a way to kind of pacify the ruler of the area, offers him his significant other, Sarah. Only because Abimelech has a dream where God appears to him and says, by the way, the woman who you've taken is actually Abraham's wife, not his sister. Does Abimelech actually do the right thing? He's actually comes out looking pretty good, Abimelech does anyway, to say, comes back to Abraham and says, take your wife back, why didn't you tell me? And then there's a little bit of shenanigans about why he said what he said, whatever else. But here again, the text not only does not criticize what Abraham does, but essentially implies that Abraham has done something to kind of ensure the lineage, because Abraham is a man of destiny. He and his offspring will create the Jewish people. And so, got to do what you got to do to survive in the wilds of the ancient Near East. The betrayal of wives, and by the way, the story happens 3 times, twice with Abraham and 1 time with Isaac, is seen as the betrayal of one's wife seems to be acceptable collateral damage to perpetuate the story and to perpetuate the lineage. Story number 3. In Genesis 21, we actually don't hear all that much of Sarah's voice in the Bible. As with most of the Bible, women's voices are mostly quiet. We don't hear from them, okay? Part of what has happened with Jewish feminism over the past 50 years is that they have helped to raise the voice of women in our history and in our story, as well as in the Torah and rabbinic literature. But in Genesis 21, we have the famous story where Sarah, who is barren, cannot bear Abraham a child, which in the ancient world, and maybe even somewhat today, is seen as the primary responsibility of a wife. Okay, if you fail at that, everything else is kind of seconds, right? Your primary goal is to provide offspring to your husband, so there's a lineage, there's a succession, right? Sarah fails at this. And when the handmaid, the concubine Hagar, gives birth to Ishmael, Sarah is besieged with jealousy. And here again, maybe I'm speculating a little bit here, but as we know in situations where there's domestic abuse, the violence that's perpetuated on one individual gets passed down by that victim to others, the act of cruelty, because there's always a need to find someone who may be less or more vulnerable than you. And in this case, Sarah takes it out on Hagar when she says to Abraham, you must cast out Hagar and her son, in this case Ishmael, the father of the Arab people, right? Cast him into the desert, presumably to die, because you don't survive in the desert of a mom and an infant child. And here again, not only does the text not criticize what Sarah says, but Abraham actually, God actually speaks to Abraham and says, pay attention to what your wife Sarah asked you to do. Just do it. So you take these 3 incidents about how women are treated in these three incidents in just this one parsha, and you have the core, the basis of a tremendous level of misogyny, of hatred of women in ancient Near Eastern society, which gets reflected through the Torah, which we see as our wisdom book, the book that gives us instruction. Torah is how we live our life, the way we need to go. And it shows how deeply rooted we can create some cultural assumptions which we perpetuate decade after decade, generation after generation. I started out my remarks by reflecting on what's going on in Afghanistan, but we here in America don't get a pass, okay? Because while it may not be at the level of what's going on in Afghanistan, that's kind of underscores how bad it can get, okay? But think about how many levels of society has accepted the second-class status of women, whether it's the ongoing struggle for equal pay for equal work, whether it's the notion of sexual harassment in the workplace, or the need of women to essentially comply with male bosses who say, if you want to keep this job or you want to get ahead, you need to have compromise yourself and your morality in order to do that. The fact, the extent to which in our media, in our music, our movies, we perpetuate how women are seen as an object, and that young boys are acculturated to this notion, so that later on they feel they can get a pass to treat women any way they want, to essentially objectify them and also to serve their sexual pleasures. I raise these things, these uncomfortable truths, or to use the algorithm, these inconvenient truths, to just get us to reflect a little bit about how we've come into a society where something that is so morally wrong has been accepted for so long. And quite intentionally, I want to root it back in the biblical text. The Bible is seen as the basis of Western civilization. And yes, there is much wisdom in the Torah that we can use to instruct us. But we also need to essentially identify when the assumptions that are written into the Torah, and were written by people who are products of their time, of an earlier consciousness, essentially woven into a text which has shaped the values and the way our world functions. So to repose the question, what do we do when the Bible gets it wrong? We need to call it out. We need to call it out and name it and understand how the assumptions that we have been raised with it and which our society has accepted as it's just the way it is, cannot continue as it is. And I can raise the issue for a lot of other issues, but in this week, in this moment, in light of what's going on in Afghanistan and what's gone on for so long in our own society, in our own homes, in our own cities and towns here in America, to think about where these assumptions come from and how we can stand up to it, call it wrong, and try and do a course correction. It's rare, I would want to say, in conclusion, it's the kind of conversation I'd love to have in a dialogue. Because we're on half Zoom and half in person, we don't yet have the technology to have that interchange, but it's something that I would urge you to have this conversation with one another. If you brought your own egg, we're gonna hang around here a little bit. Those of you at home, there are gonna be breakout rooms at the end of the services. So it's a conversation I would invite you to have with one another so we can kind of advance our own thinking about how we're gonna address it. Shabbat shalom. Well, Aliyot, I want a couple of volunteer gabbais. Someone's willing to be a gabbai? David, could you help us out?
I'm also the first Aliyah.
Okay, so you need someone else to be a gabbai? Come on, David. Then you can switch over with David. That'd be great. Thanks. We're reading Genesis chapter 21 on in the old cloud page 138 and in the new cloud page 132.
Yeah. Oh. Somebody else can call me up.
Rabbi could introduce it.
Anybody else interested in? You want to do? Yes.
יעזור ויגן ויושיע לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל הגודל אלוהינו תנו כבוד לתורה. יעמוד דוד בן
יהודה ודבורה.
לעלייה הראשונה, ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הדבקים לאדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קרבנו לעבודתו ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
Amen. Adonai, Cottage, Asher Amar, Vayas Adonai, L'Sarak, Asher Diber, Vatahar, Vatelet, Sarah, Abraham, Ben Liskunath, Lamae, Asher Diber Oto Elohim, Vayikra Abraham, Eshem Beno, Vanelad Lo, Asher Aldalo Sarah, Yitzchak, Vayamal Abraham, et Yitzchak Beno, Ben Shmonat Yamim, Ka'asher, Tziva Oto, Elohim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
I can do it. I just need a book. Who's next? Ya'amod. Nachman Eliyahu. Ben Yehuda. Leib Moshe. Yehudi Laliyah Hashniya. Okay. And can somebody tell me what? We should announce the page.
It's on the chat chapter.
Oh, it is?
Verse 5. Yeah. Page 138 in the old clout and 132.
In verse 5, you said? Okay. Okay, sorry. Do you know where it is?
Baruch Adonai HaBarach, Baruch Adonai HaBarach, Baruch Adonai HaBarach, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Abraham. Abraham ben Me'at Shana, and Abraham was 100 years old. Vahivaled lo, in the giving of birth to him, et Yitzchak beno, of Isaac his son. Vatomer Sarah, and Sarah said, Schok, laughter, Asali Elohim, has God made for me. Kol hashomea yitzachek lihi. Everyone who hears of it will laugh at me. Vatomer, and she said, Mini le'ela Abraham, who will speak of this to Abraham, Henikavanim Sarah, that Sarah would suckle sons. Ki aladati then liskunav, For I have given birth to a son to his old age. Vayigdal hayeled, and the boy grew. Vayigamel, and he was weaned. Vayas Avraham mishte gadol, and Abraham made a great feast. Beyom yigamel et Yitzchak, on the day of Isaac's weaning.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Ken and Helen? Oh,
This was going to take a Shabbat moment. So if you would like to offer a Shabbat prayer for a loved one, for yourself, I will invite you to come up and come front to the bima. And for those who are on Zoom, if you'd like to put names in the chat box for people for whom you'd like to have a prayer of healing said, please do so. So we kind of collectively offer the prayer to all those whose names are being raised or put in the chat box. Start over here, Sue. We'll start over here. Sure, her name. Jen Dreesen. So all those names have been mentioned, and those in the chat box will offer the following Shabbat.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeach imotenu, mekol habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
With you and yours, a refuah shlema, a speedy and full recovery.
Ya'amdu. What's the name? Menucha, Yitzchak, V'Hadassah, Basa, L'Aliyah HaShlishit. Are you also?
So, well, Noam's going to be the reader.
Okay.
Noam Avner is actually reading on the anniversary of his bar mitzvah. So we're glad to have you back to do a second round, Noam, okay? It should be seared into your memory. And his mom's up for the Aliyah behind.
And we're on page, do you want to do the pages?
In the old, we're at chapter 22, verse 20. In the old plow, 147. In the new plow,
It's 132. Did you say verse 9?
verse 20.
Oh, verse 20, okay.
Chapter 22, verse 20.
Oh. Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kivanu לעבודתו ונתן לנו את תורתו. Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayhi acharei habarim ha'elef vayigad l'Avraham lemor hinei yodam yilka gam hi banim anachor achicha et ut bechoro v'et uz achiv v'et Shmuel avi Aram v'et Kesed v'et Chazo v'et Pildash v'et Yidlaf v'et Betuel ובתואל ילד את רבקה, שמונה אלה ילדה מילכה, הנחור אחי אברהם, ופילגשו ושמה ראומה, ותלד גם היא את טבח ואת גחם, ואת תחש ואת מעכה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam lekah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah.
Amen. Yamod Hamagbia Tamod Hagolelet. Please rise. I'm not sure what page it is, but
We'd like to rise as we lift the dress of Torah. Torah, 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 Torah. Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Kehilat Yaakov, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov. Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. May I ask you to remain standing for a moment and turn to page 418 as we finish addressing the Torah. Do we have a height issue here?
Yes.
Vertically challenged. Okay. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Matt. Page 418, we'll open the book. I want to invite us to read together the prayer for our country. Sovereign of the universe, mercifully receive our prayer for our land and its government, that your blessing pour out on this land and on all officials of this country who are occupied in good faith with the public needs. Instruct them from your Torah's laws, enable them to understand your principles of justice so that peace and tranquility, happiness and freedom might never turn away from our land. Please, wise one, God of the life breath of all flesh, waken your spirit within all inhabitants of our land and plant among them the peoples of different nationalities and faiths who dwell here, love and brotherhood, peace and friendship. Uproot from their hearts all hatred and enmity, all jealousy and vying for supremacy. Fulfill the yearning of all people of our country to speak proudly in its honor. Fulfill their desire to see it become a light to all nations. Therefore, may it be your will that our land should be a blessing to all inhabitants of the globe. Cause to dwell among all peoples, friendship and freedom, and soon fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Let them learn no longer the ways of war, and let us say, Amen. We'll again do a procession, page 433. Bring the Torah back to the ark.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו הארץ ושמיים, וירא קרן והר. תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל, עם קרובו. הללויה, הללויה. מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני נרי, הבו
לאדוני, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'adar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, V'shaber Adonai et harzei halvano. Kol Adonai chotif ha'rodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot. Kulo omer kavod, Adonai lamavu yash. Adonai melech le'olam, Adonai oz le'amo yitem, Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom.
Page 441. Etz chaim hi, lamachazikim ba, v'tovecha merusha, techacheha, tarchenoam, v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai, elecha v'nashuva, v'lishaneinu kekeh.
May be seated. I'm going to turn back to page 309 in your seat reading and just do a little bit again, getting back to normal a little bit of a Musaf music moment. Page 309, we'll join singing Yisraku, 309.
Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'torah, oneh Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'torah, oneh Shabbat. Mekadeshei, Mekadeshei shevini Shabbat, U'kulam yispehu v'yitamdu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'torah, oneh Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'torah, oneh Shabbat. V'hashvi ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. V'hem gad Yahudim אותו קראת השבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת בקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת בקורא עונג שבת.
Please rise for Aleinu, page 445.
עלינו לשבח לדרום הכל, לתת גדולה ויוצא ראשית, שנתנו תורת אמת, וחיי העולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ועושה לארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגוהר מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אינו, באמת מלכנו וגדולתו, כתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום להשבות ולברך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת עינו. כי המלכות שלך היא מלאת תמוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד. ושמו
Now to a moment where we recall those people in our community who have passed away recently and those whose yard-sites we recall during this week. We extend our condolences to Charlie Richmond on the death of his mother, Marge Richmond, to Lisa Hack on the passing of her father, Harold Hack, to Daniela Wolf on the passing of her father, Yehuda Ben Shalom, and to Bob Klaus on the passing of his father, Preston Klaus. We also mark the following yard-sites: Don Togut, the friend of Josh Lewin, knew for many, many years, and departed to Ann Mazanson. Yetta Malvin, the mother of Phyllis Summers Akos. Henry Samuel Trop, the father of Deborah Trop. Ted Canner, the father of Alan Canner. Alan Zuck, the grandfather of Deborah Levin. Theodore Lobsens, the father of James Lobsens. My dad, Alan Schwartz. Pearl Abt, the grandmother of Eileen Abt. Lee Rosenberg, the father of Amy Aronoff. Jerry Cohn, the father of Mindy Cohen. Paul Wellstone, friend of Harvey Fernbach. Max Singer, the father of Robert Singer. Doris Driesen, the mother of George Driesen. Helen Goldberg, the mother of Jacqueline Goldberg. Louis Dunn, the grandfather of Lisa Lanthman. Shirley Stein, the mother of Bruce Stein. Adele Ehrenstein, grandmother of David Ehrenstein and mother of Jerry Ehrenstein. Paul Grossman, the brother of Gary Grossman. Melissa Levine, sister of Pamela Levine. Corinne Paul, the mother of Diane Paul. Elaine Salant, the mother of Mark Sherman. Harold Pasofsky, father of Stephen Parker. And David Rothschild, the father of Aileen Rothschild Seidel. All those people saying Cottage, we invite to stand for the Mourner's Cottage that appears on page 451. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shmerava, Yama, Yivra, Hirute, Yamlich Makote, Chayekon, Ubimechon, Chayed of Beit Israel, Bagalah, Bizman, Kari, Vimru, Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Leolam, Omel Maya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitbar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalel, Yitalal, Shmei Dikudisha, Richu. Leila, Minkol, Berchatav, Shiratav, Tushkatav, Benechmatav, Amiran, Vilma, Vimru, Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, V'yakol Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Ramav, Uyaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael, V'yakol Yoshvei Tevel, Vimru, Amen. So I'm not sure, is someone assigned to bring some announcements for the community? I had Shauna, but I see Shauna on the screen, but she's at home, so she can't do it here where everyone can hear it. So is there a ranking official? If not, read your newsletters. A lot's happening all the time, but I'm stumped here. Shauna, you want to just use in the chat box, or you can do whatever you want. I'm not sure we can hear you from here. Okay, she'll do that. I will say that we are going to have a bring your own egg. If you brought some food, I think there's some tables out in the social hall or on the porch perhaps area. So we'll be able to do that together. And people who are on Zoom, we're going to have breakout rooms for you. So if you hang in there, I know that's been done on a regular basis. So you have a chance to be in a small group where you can kind of get to know each other. You can talk about issues I raised in the Devar Torah, or just provide updates in your lives. Make sure you introduce yourselves to each other. Not everyone will know everyone in the room, but we invite you to do that part. And if you want to bring your own egg to your breakout rooms, be my guest. Okay. I want to thank Paul Lewis for being our Chavanit today. Thank you, Paula, for being such a wonderful Shlichat Tzibur. And we will close with Kiddush and Motzi. And I think there's mostly food for the challah outside in the hallway, but we'll bring the Kiddush cup up here and do Kiddush together, and then end with Maya Kahayom. Please rise.
ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. Venu bnei Israel, oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. V'shamru bnei Israel et hashabat, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמעו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. צווי חיי.
לחיים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא כול.
And Maggie's going to lead from the motzi. Come on, Maggie. Amen.
Maya Ferrano, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Ferrano, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Ferrano. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Ferrano. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, right. That should be the word.
Thank you. So, Sid, I'm glad you brought back the session. My own personal hope when the pandemic is over is the reappearance of 3D and sound at the production. There's weird stuff that's always left over. It's always there. Right.
How are you, Matt?
Very good.
Yeah, everything good in the family?
Our youngest has announced his engagement. Ben is getting married. His longtime girlfriend. My mother's in the nursing home. Sometimes they're working on her drug regimen because she's out of it a lot.
Where's she looking?
In New York. My father's at.
We're in New York. My mom's here too.
They live in Larchmont, but the nursing home in which is one town.
Yeah.
Your mother must be on a lot.
Well, the place she's at is in Kew Gardens. Because my sister lives and there's a kosher facility there. So.
Right. And other than that, things are proceeding at pace.
Are you retiring?
I left my job in July.
Okay.
I'm doing a little bit of freelancing here. I got one scientific journal which I produced. When corporate client was being working on my second major project. I'm not quite working full time, but that's okay too.
Okay.
I've got a 3-year-old grandson, I can spend some time. So overall, I'm doing well. So our 3.5-year-old grandson has our middle son sent him a flip book with pictures of things you're supposed to be able to identify. He goes through all of them, and there are 2 he can't identify. One is a necktie, because he's never seen it. Daddy doesn't go off to work anymore.
Yeah.
And the other is their activities. You got to say what they're doing. There's a row of kids watching a movie. What are they doing?
Wow.
Yeah. It's just outside his experience.
Huh.
I mean,
we were talking about whether we're to go back to the theater or not.
Yeah, right.
We have tickets to Kennedy Center next week. That'll be our first time we're at the
Right. We haven't been. When Ben, his uncle, was younger, Wilma took him to his first movie, The Lion King. The movie ends, she climbs up on the seat and he shouts, rewind, He has some frame of reference.
Yeah.
Wilma, my grandson, there's no frame of reference.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good
nice service.
Thank you.
Very good. I think we're in. Sorry, this is I don't mean yeah, no,
Hey.
Had to go out there? Yeah. You outside? Beautiful. Great. Now you're on the front of the porch, right? Porch. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't know. I never could tell how you were on Zoom. I couldn't see the number.
I see, it's only down. That's hard to tell because people in breakout rooms.
Out here. What's your thought on John?
Yeah.
Are we doing internet now?
Just like you and Josh, me and Fred, very
And Shabbat morning? Are we doing morning?
We're going to have a little snack.
Yeah,
next Sunday. So that's our first time having a. We had dinner here last night. People ordered themselves. We sat outside and ate. So, but I think November 20th is not going to be one outside. But we're like in this. Everything is the kind of test in terms of yeah. That's the pandemic and the weather. So it's possible that when we get closer to say either it's warm enough to be outside and share something to eat outside, or I can't imagine that it's suddenly going to be fine with a surf outside. But we just got these new heaters to hang outside on the porch. Waiting things so that we can use them. So it might be possible.
Can that be up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was even possible to use it last night.
You know, I'm trying to think about a way to get back to the back room. So, yeah,
I know. And someone said to me, I didn't think about this, but someone said that that weekend is going to be self-quarantine. And everyone's going to be, my grandmother's Thanksgiving, I want to say, whatever else. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have a nice bathroom.
Well, I'm looking for the conversation about maybe we can throw people back in and announce it and say, here's what we're doing, here's where it's going to be, and
Yeah.
so people know what the facts are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Happy to talk about it.
Okay, good.
I just had a conversation with him on Thursday to get him up to speed and to make some detailed plans. Yeah.
Yeah, I told James.
Yeah.
Children, their children, what is it that for hours? The other one in grad school. Wow, I have had that young shot for 3 generations. Oh, yeah, right. That's right. Okay, well, it's fun to see you guys.